Hello again, everybody, and welcome all of you who are joining us now on YouTube. I'm really happy that you have decided to watch our YouTube videos. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel so you will know every time we get a new video put up. And as always, we would love to have your comments, pro or con, after you watch the video. So, here I am again. And what I was guided to talk about today is a little something that I have used for years to help me interpret the course, or to help me realize what goes on in the course community, and a little bit of the differences that people have in their interpretation of the course and in their application of the course. So I call this my MO versus MAW thing, my MOE thing versus the MAW thing. So I'm going to get into that. But first I want to share something from the course. Now, during the reading today, Reverend Peter read the passage from the original edition, which talks about the Great Crusade and the slogan for the Great Crusade. But I'm going to read the passage now that isn't from the original edition. I'm going to read you the one that's from the New Circle of Atonement edition. And there's just some very minor differences, but I think the minor differences make a big difference. So this is what the New Circle of Atonement edition has. And Circle of Atonement, if you do not know, they went back to the notes of Helen Schuckman and tried to do a more accurate version, or at least what he believes is a more accurate version of what Jesus wanted. And in the Circle of Atonement edition it says, "You now share my inability to tolerate lack of love in yourself and in everyone else, and you must join the Great Crusade to correct it. The slogan for this crusade is listen, learn, and do. This means listen to my voice, learn to undo the error, and do something to correct it. The first two are not enough. The real members of my party are active workers." Now, first of all, this is an amazing passage, and this whole passage is absent, or almost entirely absent, from the Foundation for Inner Peace version of the book. And it was actually when I read that this was in the earlier edit and had been edited out, and I found that out probably in about 1999, that was when I had to put the Foundation for Inner Peace book away. Because if they could have taken out something as important as the Great Crusade that we were supposed to be on, having a slogan, listen, learn, and do, and that Jesus was telling us to be active workers, then who knows what else they might have taken out. And I wanted that teaching. But what I want to point out first of all is the editing of A Course in Miracles continue on. So if you look at the earlier edit, apparently, what it says, "You now share my inability to tolerate lack of love in yourself and everyone else. You must join the Great Crusade." Okay, but even in the original edition, it's slightly changed. Instead of saying "you now share," it says "as you share." As you share my inability to tolerate lack of love in yourself and others, you must join the Great Crusade. And what I feel like when you say "as you share," it's sort of like an option. It's like maybe it hasn't quite happened yet. As you share it, like as you rise to what you need to rise to, as you do that, then you will have an inability to tolerate lack of love. And as you do that, then you will have to join the Great Crusade. But the earlier edit didn't say it that way. The earlier edit was much stronger in its statement. It says, "You now share my inability to tolerate lack of love in yourself and in everyone else. You now share it." So it wasn't about rising to something, it was about claiming that you were already there. Claim it that you're already there. And so this is present through all the editing, I think. They edited out, maybe they were guided to do it. So the Circle of Atonement edition, the earlier, it's just always stronger in its statement. It's always stronger in its statement that this is about doing things. And that's leads me to this whole thing about how one interprets the Course. And there's a school of people, and it's fine, whatever you're guided to do, that interpret the Course as a mind-only experience. Mind-only experience, MOE, that's the MOE. And whenever you say anything about the world, they get upset. And they will be quick to tell you that you're wrong to be focusing on the world at all. And even if you say, well, I'm not focusing on the world, you shouldn't even be considering the world. You know, the world is just going to do what the world does. A Course in Miracles has nothing to do with the world. A Course in Miracles is a mind-only experience. Don't think about the world at all. Just let the world be what the world is, mind-only experience. But I don't believe that that is really what Jesus wanted us to do. I think Jesus wanted us to be active workers, to do something, to listen, learn, and do something to correct the error, and to do it now, because now we share his inability to tolerate lack of love in yourself and others. In yourself and in others. And this is another thing, because there's a lot of people that will say A Course in Miracles is really a form of non-duality. But while it does have passages that really reinforce the non-dual way of looking at the Course, a lot of the Course is grounded in duality. As you tolerate your inability to tolerate lack of love in yourself and others. That's duality. If it was truly a non-dual discipline, it would not have passages like that in it. It would always go towards the one, towards the no difference. So I think A Course in Miracles wants us to recognize there is no difference between our brothers and sisters and siblings of whatever gender association they might like. It knows where we are, and the work of the Course is to take us from where we are to another place, not to just affirm the absolute and do a top-down thing. So I think A Course in Miracles wants us to understand that our mind affects the world. That's the MAW, mind affects the world. And that's more my interpretation of A Course in Miracles. So I'm not a MOE person, I'm not a mind-only experience. I understand the mind, but I also understand that the mind affects the world. And that when you really get that, and I believe, and when you really get what Jesus is calling us to, then there is no choice but to join this great crusade that we now learn has a slogan, listen, learn, and do. And we, of course, want to be a part of Jesus' party, so we want to be active workers. I know I want to be an active worker. And that's why I'm so excited about our new healing team that we are organizing, that we've organized. And we just got our 20th member, Reverend Brad, today on the healing team. So we got 20 members on the healing team now. I'm very excited about that. And we're actively doing things that we believe will show up in an appearance of the world. It will show up as greater healing, greater peace, greater strength, a greater reflection of our divinity while here in a world that absolutely is a manifestation, absolutely isn't real, but the only way to get through this manifestation of a nightmare, I believe, is to turn it into the happy dream that A Course in Miracles wants us to turn it into, and from there we will be awakened by God, Him, herself. And we have to practice this. Obviously, if we're not used to doing this, we have to practice it. Nobody just gets something automatically, or very rare, let's say. Do you just get something with that bolt of spiritual lightning and suddenly now you are totally transformed? It usually takes work and practice. And I think that's what's great about the healing team too, because we're working daily. We are practicing. And with practice, we will get better at it. And that's what's going to convince us that we have the ability. And that's also in the reading that Reverend Peter said. It says, doing them will bring conviction in the ability, since conviction really comes through accomplishment. So conviction comes through accomplishment. We're not going to be convinced that we have the ability until we practice and accomplish. I think there's some people that are a little hesitant to do healing. They don't really feel like they have the ability to use their mind to heal. They'll wait until they're convinced they have the ability, and then they'll join the team, or then they'll do it. But you're not going to get convinced until you accomplish it, and you're not going to accomplish it until you practice it. and do it. So practice is important. And just think about anything that you ever learned in your life. You didn't just suddenly get on a bicycle one day and ride it. You know, there were all sorts of steps that you had before you did that. Maybe you had it with those training wheels. A lot of people did the little training wheel thing so that you couldn't really fall over, but you could tip just a little bit and the training wheels would stop you. I mean, I did it with my father running behind me, like holding the bicycle. And I could only go so fast because he could only run so fast. And then he would just let go for just a little minute and then, you know, I'd fall. But eventually, I learned to ride the bicycle, and that's what healing is like too. You're not just going to all of a sudden, you're probably not just going to all of a sudden be able to be this incredible miracle worker that accomplishes in observable effect every miracle she sets out to accomplish. But we do what we can. We practice from where we are at. And the joined relationship with this healing team, these right now 20 other people doing it with you, they're like the training wheels. They're that support that might help you just continue on and not get discouraged until you have enough accomplishment so that you will get convinced of your ability, because conviction comes through accomplishment. So I'm not in the mind only experience. I understand that all the changes within the mind, but I expect to see observable effects out there in the world. So I'm in the Mind Effects World School, the MAW school, not the MOE school. And I think this is supported all throughout A Course in Miracles. I mean, I really do. I'm going to read a couple of quotations. It says, there is no point in trying to change the world. I mean, people say that as a way to prove to me that I'm wrong. It says, there is no point in trying to change the world. It is incapable of change because it is merely an effect. But there is indeed a point in changing your thoughts about the world. Here you are changing the cause, and the effects will change automatically. So you got to read the rest of the passage before you really understand that. There's no point in trying to change the world, because the world is just a reflection. So if I look in the mirror in the morning and look at my body's reflection, and I see that my beard has started to get a little gray, which it does just about every week, I could get a crayon or maybe a brown-black magic marker and draw a little on the mirror. You know, I could color in my little gray on the mirror. And that'll work, sort of, as long as I never move. And never move. See, I think that's what the Course is talking about. Like, there's no point trying to change the image without doing the mental change. That's just like painting the beard black. The truth is, when I see the image looking not like I really want it to look because there's too much gray, I got to get the hair dye out. It's time to do my little weekly thing with the dye, my little grooming thing. Yes, I dye my hair and my beard. So I have for many years. And I'm fine with it. I know there's a lot of people, whatever. I'm fine with that. But that's me going to the cause. The cause of the reflection of the gray isn't the mirror. The cause is, it's time for me to dye my hair. And then I dye, and then the reflection doesn't have the gray anymore. So that's what I think when A Course in Miracles says there's no point in trying to change the world. It means like that. There's no point painting paint on the mirror, because that's not going to work. But there is indeed a point in changing your thoughts about the world. Here you are changing the cause. The effects will change automatically. So I got to go to cause. The cause of the reflection is the fact that I need to dye my hair. And then I do that. I dye my hair, and then the image changes. So mind affects the world. You got to go to cause, but you expect that to show up with something observable in the world. Learning is constant and so vital in its power for change. The Son of God can recognize his power in one instant and change the world in the next. That is because by changing his mind, he has changed the most powerful device that was ever created for change. So we recognize our power, and then we change the world. That's why on the healing team I ask people, do your lesson of the day first. You know, get into your highest state of consciousness that you can get into for the day. And then just read the list. You know, just be present with these appearances. Your presence challenges all those appearances. There isn't anything specifically you have to do. You can do whatever you feel guided to do. But our learning is so powerful. We just recognize who we are, and then the world's going to change. Because we are the all-powerful, divine, holy children of God. Here's another one. Therefore, seek not to change the world, but will to change your mind about the world. Perception is a result, not a cause. So again, people will say, well, Reverend Tony says, seek not to change the world. By focusing on the effect, you're trying to change the world. And I always say, no, read the rest of the passage. Again, it's just telling you not to paint the image. Seek not to change the world because that's not where it's caused, but will to change your mind about the world because that perception is merely a result. It is not a cause. So you always have to go to cause, but when you go to cause, perception has to change because you've changed the thoughts that are causing it. I got one more. This is a great one. It's near and dear to my heart because we use this as the theme, as the quote that inspired the Las Vegas conference in 2016, which was change your mind, change the world. Herein lies your ultimate release. Change but your mind on what you want to see, and all the world must change accordingly. Change but our mind in what we want to see, all the world must change accordingly. And it means change on all levels. It means we're going to change the way we think about it. And so even if the appearance doesn't seem to change, let's say there are times when the appearance does not seem to change, but we will be at peace because we have now changed the way that we are thinking about it. And maybe the appearance doesn't change. And sometimes the appearance does not change. Let's be honest, sometimes it does not change. Mm-hmm. But if we've changed our mind, it doesn't really matter what the appearance is anymore. And if we've changed our mind in a fundamental way, that flow of energy just allows everything to be perfect the way that it needs to be for everybody to learn the lessons that they need to learn, and perhaps the appearance does change. You know, there's a newer version now of this MOE versus MAW divide in interpretation. And that's, as I said, it's the people who are trying to make A Course in Miracles into an Advaita teaching, into this non-dual teaching. Because in the non-dual teaching, you go to oneness, and that oneness is the mental thing. And so, you know, I've seen this this thing morph now into this huge discussion. And you know, the discussion is great. I welcome the discussion. This huge discussion is about whether A Course in Miracles is a non-dual teaching or not. And as I said earlier, yeah, it is a non-dual teaching in many, many passages, but the work of the Course, the work of practicing the Course, I believe, is absolutely firmly grounded in duality. I perceive my brothers. I perceive my sisters. And if a brother or a sister does something that I feel upset about, then I practice forgiveness of that brother and sister. And I think that's the problem with taking it too far into the non-dual path. It's just like everything is one, everything is perfect, I need do nothing, I don't need to practice forgiveness. You know, I think it gets caught in this wheel that actually prevents the practice of the discipline itself. There are people that will not join the healing team because everything is perfect. Why even look at an illusion of something not being perfect? Why even think about people as having any issue at all? And I understand that perspective. I just don't think that's what A Course in Miracles is actually calling me to do. And so I'm calling people that have more of my viewpoint on things, that there is a place for real miracle workers, people who are expressing love and light and acknowledging people for where they are at, knowing that's not who they are in a true sense, and knowing they can rise above that. And as I said, those effects of our wrong thinking, they can shift, they can change. And I think A Course in Miracles wants us to expect that they frequently will. This is from Miracle Principle number 35, and I think it's interesting in its wording. I'm gonna end with this one. And let's so I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to talk about it. So this is Miracles Principle number 35. It says, miracles are expressions of love, but it does not follow that they will always have observable effects. So miracles are expressions of love. First of all, that's the key definition of a miracle in A Course in Miracles. Expressions of love. It must be mentioned about 6 or 7 times in the first 50 miracles principles. A miracle is an interpersonal expression of love. So miracles are expression of love. But it does not follow that they will always have observable effects. See, to me, that means they'll probably have observable effects. They will frequently have observable effects. They may not always have observable effects. But people use that passage to justify not really being a miracle worker because you're looking for effects and they're not going to have effects. They say, well, it says right here they're not going to have effects. I said, no, it says they're not going to always have effects. But to me that means that they frequently will. A majority of time they will. That's kind of what that means to me. Otherwise, why use the word always? Most of the time they will, not always. That's how I would use it. Most of the time, not always. So that's the interpretation of that passage that I have. So I am very happy with praying for people. I'm very blessed with doing that kind of work, doing that kind of a task with the healing team. And I must say in the about 3 weeks now that I have been doing it regularly and daily, it's really upped my practice of the daily lesson. I've done daily lessons for 30 years, and sometimes I'm doing pretty good, sometimes I don't do them quite as diligently as I would like to do them. When I'm doing it with a class and I have a lesson partner that I'm actually calling, I do them pretty well at that time. But when I don't have a lesson partner and I'm not actually calling anybody, I slip a lot. But suddenly I'm partnering with this whole healing team, and we're partnering with the dedication to be a healing influence from our highest state of consciousness for this list that we have. And I hear from the people on the list, and they're very grateful that we're praying for them. And one of the very first things that happens is that they feel comforted, and they feel blessed that through whatever challenge they have the help and the support of a loving, devoted, spiritual group of people. And that's a huge blessing in and of itself. So I am definitely in the MAW camp. I think our mind affects the world, and I think I can look to the world actually to see if I am making the mental shifts that A Course in Miracles is asking us to make. I am fine with people who think it's a mind-only experience. I get that. I am fine with people who think A Course in Miracles is a real Advaita non-dual teaching. That's great. There's a place for all of us in the Miracles community. Actually, we can all benefit from each other. Sometimes that non-dual approach and that MOE approach might be just what I need to remind myself, possibly in one of those not always cases when something that I've really worked on doesn't seem to be manifesting. And then being reminded of the oneness that exists regardless is a real benefit. So I think there's a place for all of us in the Miracles community, and I feel firmly grounded in that miracles affect the physical world that we find ourselves in, because expressions of love, in my mind, affect the world. So join me in the healing team if you feel so led and guided. Thank you. That's my talk.